Good afternoon, everyone. This is Michael O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion for June 19th, 2020, recorded on 4:09 p.m. Eastern Time. While taking a look here at the latest sea surface temperature anomalies last updated as of yesterday, you can continue to notice the very significant decline in the sea surface temperature anomaly pattern out here, more specifically in the Nino 1 and 2 regions, which are out in here, eventually stretching into the Nino 3.4 region, which is right in there. And again, this is going to continue to rapidly decline here over the next several months. We continue to see a push towards a La Nina. We are likely to get another easterly wind burst here over the next several days or so that will continue to really foster these cooler than normal anomalies, this upwelling pattern in the atmosphere. And with the next few days and weeks going by, we will see these temperatures cool off even more. The skin temperature is really cooling off. In the Atlantic Basin, we continue to head towards a more positive Phase 1 AMO signature. Almost look at that. That is basically a classical AMO Phase 1 signature. No more of this significant warmth in the subtropical Atlantic like we are seeing. It's now more focused down here in the main development region of the Atlantic Basin right now, much above the long-term average, in some cases a full 2 degrees Celsius above the long-term average in spots, but on average, this area is running about a half a degree Celsius to about a full degree Celsius above the long-term average. While this continues to persist even in through portions of the Atlantic, into the Caribbean there, southwestern Atlantic, and then in the Gulf of Mexico, still a little bit of cooler anomalies here because of the recent convection in there, plus with the upwelling of Cristobal. If you take a look here at the upper ocean heat content, this was last updated this morning. Again, we continue to notice the upper ocean heat content finally beginning to build north now, just south of the Cabo Verde Islands right now. You can see that little splotch right there of that higher upper ocean heat content just to the south of the Cabo Verde Islands, which is getting dominated by a big Saharan air layer outbreak right now. But again, it's mostly concentrated down here in the southern main development region, but we are starting to see that creep up now into the MDR. That's suggesting that the pattern is getting ready to flip here as we begin to enter into the latter half of June into July. You also have this big expansive area right here in the Caribbean with upper ocean heat content values starting to get up there. Once you start getting up into these greens, yellows, oranges, reds, that's your higher upper ocean heat content. That's the higher potential for latent heat release. That's the more potential for tropical cyclones to really take advantage of that area and strengthen down here, all else being favorable. That upper ocean heat content is there. It's now coming alive out here in the southern main development region and in the Gulf of Mexico, and even all the way up into the Gulf Stream, way up here. So the pattern is changing. The times are coming. The pattern is changing across the Atlantic Basin here. Now, last night we tweeted about this, earlier this morning. We began testing Phase 1 of our unmanned camera systems. We began just testing how long the camera system could run for. We got a little over 11 hours of runtime. We got about 11 hours and about 15 minutes of runtime on about a 15-hour SD card. So we were running pretty good. A little bit less than what I was hoping for, so we're going to make some modification and tweaks to it during the very early morning tomorrow, late tonight and early tomorrow. We'll make some tweaks and adjustments, hopefully get a better runtime out of it. But again, this is the unmanned camera systems that we're testing. Again, if you guys really want to see what we're doing, go check me out on Twitter here at Mike O'Malley1. Again, I am right here. You guys can see that. There you go, Mike O'Malley1, R-E-M-A-L-Y, and then the number 1 right there for the username. Again, we're testing all these unmanned camera systems to capture the raw fury and power of these tropical cyclones as they make landfall along the coastlines. We began Phase 1 in testing last night, so this is super exciting. If you guys do want to support that, make sure to go check me out on Twitter. Again, that's what everything looks like, and you guys will see the final product tomorrow as we begin to head into Phase 2, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit of time. Now, getting on with the rest here, this is the CDAS methodology for the sea surface temperatures coming from tropicaltidbits.com. Again, you notice this magical 26.5 degrees Celsius line right here. It's really now beginning to pass up through about 50 west, which is somewhere right about in here. That's really beginning to now inch over this way, further back towards the west as this area becomes more and more favorable for this time of the year. Again, one thing to point out is that this is only June 19th. It is only June 19th. We are starting to see this pattern really amp up. The water temperatures are becoming warmer and warmer across the whole basin. Basin-wide, these temperatures are fairly warm, even into the portions of the eastern Pacific Basin, with water temperatures running about 29 to 30 Celsius there in the southeastern Pacific Basin. Also, water temperatures here in the southern Maine development region about 26, 27 Celsius. And over here in the Caribbean, about 28 to 29 Celsius. And then, of course, right here you have your Gulf Stream that's running all the way up through here. So pretty warm for this time of the year, unseasonably warm, certainly with that Phase 1 AMO extending all the way into portions of the Atlantic Basin, southwestern Atlantic into the Caribbean. Very warm for this time of the year, that is for sure. Now, taking a look here at the actual visible satellite coming from COD Meteorology. This is the College DuPage website. You notice all of this drier, milky white clouds out here. This is indicative of that Saharan air layer, that big plume of energy stretching all the way now, and it's actually beginning to now make its effect into portions of the islands here. There was some reports the other day of some drier air, some of that milky white cirrus dust clouds making its way into Barbados, which is down in here. It's right here. That's Barbados right there. And this bigger plume here of the Saharan air layer over the next several days will continue to push off towards the west. Again, it's not moving very fast, but this will eventually make it into the islands here, and then eventually all the way up into the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, and then the Gulf states of the United States here, from Florida all the way through Texas. Gorgeous sunsets and sunrises, if you're up that early, will be present during that time. You also notice here some thunderstorms developing over the Florida Peninsula there from the sea breezes. But again, for the most part, this very dry air is very indicative of nothing really happening. You do notice some tropical waves that are out there to the south of this. Again, not really any threat because of this big Saharan air plume out here. There's another tropical wave about right in here, it does seem. There might be a little bit of a wave out in here. And that's also not expected to really do anything. We also have some drier air in the eastern Pacific Basin, but things will be shaping up over the next several weeks or so to a more favorable environment in the eastern Pacific, and then finally out here in portions of the western Atlantic Basin. Pattern is changing, and it's only a matter of time before things really get kicking there. If you take a look here at the 850 Malabar Vorticity, the spin in the atmosphere about 5,000 feet off the ground. Again, once you start getting into these reds and whites here, you're starting to get the more cyclonic spin at height. And again, you're not really seeing much. It's a very dull pattern right now, which is good, certainly. You don't want hurricanes. You don't want hurricanes year-round. Otherwise, I think no one would be living along the coast. That's for sure. But you notice south of the Cabo Verde Islands here, a little bit of vorticity here associated with the tropical wave, not really bundling in anything. There's a big plume of Saharan air out here. Nothing really in the eastern Pacific Basin as well, although there is some indications of something trying to come together over the next several days out in this region. But all in all, most is quiet for right now. And again, if you start to take a look here at the wind shear, again, you really notice why this bigger pattern of wind shear, although the pattern is starting to change. And you notice that this bigger plume right now of this lesser wind shear, the pattern is starting to change. And as we go throughout the next several weeks here into early July, the pattern's going to begin to change. The trade winds are going to lessen a little bit. We might be coming up on a window of opportunity for some favorability for something to try to get going out here in the eastern Pacific and then eventually the western Atlantic Basin. I do believe that it's only a matter of time, and we will likely see a July system. I can't completely rule that out right now. Speaking of the eastern Pacific Basin, we do have an area here highlighted by the National Hurricane Center, 20% chance over the next 5 days. As this area begins to increase in favorability over the next several weeks, where you'll likely see 1 or 2 disturbances form in the eastern Pacific Basin and then quickly transition, or kind of a quick transition into the Atlantic Basin here. But again, only at 20% over the next 5 days. This has stayed very stagnant here. But again, we are expecting some window of opportunity in the eastern Pacific and then the Atlantic Basins here over the next several days or so. This is the Gfs Forecast here, the 850 Malabar Vorticity, the 18Z run here, valid as of, 12Z run, valid as of 18Z or 1 o'clock this afternoon here. Again, as you continue to move throughout time, again, just kind of spanning this out. Really don't see much here even out to hour 150 before something finally tries to bundle out here in the Eastern Pacific Basin. Again, it's too early to determine what, if any, impacts would occur. But again, for the most part, the pattern is such that this area down here, this area of interest, should stay away from land as this heads out to sea. Again, maybe some surf conditions for, Cabo San Lucas out here. And that's pretty much it. Maybe some waves along the beach resorts out here. But again, nothing really significant in terms of land impacts. And the European forecast model out here is forecasting much of the same. Again, maybe something towards the end of the run out here in the Eastern Pacific Basin, but not even out to hour 240. Does the European forecast model try to develop something out here in the Southeastern Pacific or the Atlantic Basin for that matter? So again, we are heading more into a time now of favorability. The time is beginning to change. And again, things could be setting up here for a fairly active peak of season, that is for sure. Now, once again, this is what we were talking about earlier. This is our kind of our outlook here for the next several weeks in terms of what we are doing. Again, we started phase 1 testing last night, and that actually worked fairly well. Again, we got about 11 hours of runtime continuously on the GoPro with our battery pack. Very well sustained, and it does look like that we are going to be able to now to head into phase 2 testing. Phase 2 testing begins tomorrow, and what that's going to be doing in our phase 2, our GoPro camera packs, we're doing this. We are putting the GoPro in this case. We're going to be cutting out this little area in the case right about in there, and we're gonna use sealant around that area and put a little dome over there, and we're going to have this camera system with the battery pack in there, and it's going to be able to record for about 11 hours. As of right now, we will look to extend that out here to about 24 hours in a while, but right now we are starting at 11 hours to see how beneficial this will be. Going forward, we will probably then up it if there's enough demand to 24 hours, so on and so forth as needed. But tomorrow starts where we get into the testing. The GoPro's in its housing unit, which is this big case right there, that yellow case right there. It's going to be a full-scale outdoor test tied down to a tree with the ratchet traps that we have. And this is going to be a period of about 7 to 10 days that we are going to be testing this for, off and on, not every single day. But this is going to be 7 to 10 days of streamlined testing. We're going to be trying different things, trying out what works best in the environment that we have to set this up in the storm environment. And then eventually, after the next 7 to 10 days, if all goes well out here with phase 2 testing, we will move into phase 3, which is the operational mode, which then the camera systems become ready to be put into service during tropical cyclones. So we are working on that. We are working very diligently with that. And we have a lot of things going on in the back end, which we will show you guys some tomorrow. If we do get, in fact, into phase 2 testing tomorrow, which we should, we will certainly show the process of how we're going to set this up and kind of walk you guys through everything. So if you guys do want to support that, again, make sure to go follow my Twitter. And again, that's just what we are doing this morning with our 11-hour runtime. Very cool stuff that we're working on here over the next several weeks. Again, if you guys do want to go check this out, please go follow me and support me on Twitter at MikeRomali1. You guys will like what we're doing over there. Again, we're doing a ton of updates in terms of what we're doing. And phase 1 testing has been complete. We're heading into phase 2 testing tomorrow. So make sure to stick around for that, because we'll have a couple of interesting things to put out on the Twitter about that. And I will certainly be tweeting from time to time about that. And during tomorrow's Outlook and discussion, I will also go over what we did, during the earlier portions of tomorrow. So again, a lot to look forward to here over the next several days. If you guys want to support me, go make sure to check me out on Twitter at MikeRomali1. Hope y'all have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. I am Mike Romali, and I'll see you guys back here tomorrow afternoon. Stay safe, everyone.